Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2270. Well, it's still wintertime, and that means batteries could be suffering a little bit. And when spring comes, you don't want to hear that dreaded click, click, click on your old collector car. So today I've got a battery expert in the house to teach us a few things and solve some problems when it comes to battery care and charging. So be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Chicago, Illinois, with a very special guest by the name of Bobbie DuMelle. Bobbie, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I am ready to release the clutch.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have some fun. And you're going to enlighten and share myself and our audience today about battery care. You work at a company that I met your original founder way back in the start in Frankfurt, Germany, and learned a lot about your brand. I've known about it over the years. I have one of your products on my beloved BMW that sits out in my garage. I maybe should take a picture and send it to you because it's very old and it's still working great. So maybe I'm a good testimonial for you.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We once had someone bring in what they thought was one of the very first chargers, and they were so proud of it. So we took a photo of it and posted it on our intranet. So we'd love to do that again.
There we go. That's pretty cool. Now, before I give you a proper introduction and we dive into the world of CTEK, what's one little thing that most people don't know about you, Bobbie?
I wrote a children's book.
Really? When did you do that?
About 7 years ago.
And what was it about?
The Adventures of Bella the bird. She's a bird that takes care of her friends, and she flies to Australia on an adventure.
Wow. How cool is that? Well, is this something writing? Was this kind of a hobby thing for you, or just you got a whim, or maybe a new family member in the house that you wanted to write a book for?
Yeah. No, actually, it was just something to keep me out of trouble when I was going through a grieving process. And it was a fun way to do it. Either that or I was going to tinker in a car. And I thought this would be a lot easier where I wouldn't have to dive too deep into expenses.
Well, books are great, and we're going to talk about books later in our show here, but I think that's great. It's kind of like, I was taught years ago, my dad taught me this, journaling, when you're going through anything in life, whether it's good, bad, a grieving process, whatever it might be, just sit down and write your feelings out. And for a lot of people, they have a hard time doing that, but once you start doing it and you realize this is just kind of for me, it really can help a lot. But writing a book, you took it to an entirely new level. I love it. Cool. Well, you'll have to send me a copy, or are they still available? Can people buy them? Did you self-publish or somebody published the book?
They're online at Amazon.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's called The Adventures of Bella, A Bird's Tale.
Okay. Well, I'll have to go and buy a copy. I've got a grandchild and another one coming. So I love getting books for little ones. So I'll make sure I get a copy. And I'll put a link to that on Bobbie's show notes page here on the Cars Yeah website so you can do the same. So let me give you a proper introduction. Bobbie DuMelle is the Executive Vice President of CTEK with over 25 years in the automotive and battery industry. CTEK is the global leader in battery maintenance products for cars, trucks, power sports, and a lot more. Established in Dalarna, Sweden over 20 years ago, CTEK is the leading global brand in vehicle battery charging solutions. They offer product ranges from 12-volt and 24-volt battery chargers to charging solutions for electrical vehicles and their e-mobility options. Their products are sold via a carefully selected network of global distributors and retailers as original equipment supplied to more than 50 of the world's leading vehicle manufacturers. CTEK takes great pride in its unique culture based on a passion for innovation and a deep commitment to supporting the transition to a greener mobility by adhering to industry ESG standards. We're going to learn a lot more about Bobbie and CTEK in a moment, but first a word from our valuable sponsors. They keep the petrol in the tanks and the charge in the battery, so give them a little love and we'll be right back. Years ago, when it was time to renew my collector car insurance policy, my carrier's rates went up. way up, but my usage was the same and I never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. So what's with that? So I turned to American Collectors Insurance. Has your collector car insurance recently raised your rates for no good reason? Tired of paying an annual membership fee? Then it's time to look around and call American Collectors Insurance. I shopped around, I asked friends for recommendations, and found a winner that I can trust. And boy, I'm glad I did. I saved hundreds of dollars every year and slept better at night knowing my baby was properly insured. American Collectors Insurance have been protecting vehicles since 1976. They provided me with an agreed value insurance policy backed by their history of taking great care of their clients. What could be better than that? So give them a call and ask for a quote today. 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love like I did with American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. TechForce is a charity of choice here at Cars Yeah. Auto techs are in high demand, but the supply, it's critically short. For every one tech who graduates school, there's 5 jobs waiting for them. Said another way, 4 technician jobs go unfilled for every technician graduate. Lots of young people love cars, but don't know how to turn that passion into their careers. TechForce Foundation shows them through career exploration, technical education, and the workforce development solutions. Join Cars Yeah in supporting TechForce Foundation and its mission to solve the technician shortage by donating at techforce.org today. So, Bobbie, we are back. Now, before we dive into CTEK, because you have some very interesting information to share that may change some of us old dogs, and I'm speaking about myself, and our opinions on how to care for batteries. But first, what got you into this industry?
Wow, I have to think back. First of all, it was by accident because before any of this happened, I had a AAA card. And now I have learned so much more, and I love this industry. So what got me started is a friend of mine told me that there was a job they thought I would be great for. I had no automotive experience. And I would say in the first 90 days of taking that job, I met so many cool people, and it opened my eyes to so many things. And now I completely understand how important it is to take care of your battery and the management system, because there is nothing worse than not having your car ready when you're ready.
Oh, yeah. No, it's terrible. Well, I want to talk about battery technology, and I shared a little story with Bobbie before we got on the call here today about a 16, 17-year-old kid named Mark Green, who was helping a neighbor across the street jumpstart a car. And the guy had put the cables on wrong, I think is what happened, because that battery blew up in my face. And oh my gosh, could have been catastrophic. Luckily, his mom was right there with the hose watering the lawn, and she washed me down real quick, and everything seemed to be okay, other than a lot of stinging for a while. But things have changed a lot with cars, and your product, which I have one on my vehicle that's been on my car since I bought it. It's a 2005 BMW M3. It's never let me down, by the way, which is very cool. I want you to talk about a couple things. And the first one is, I got a list of suggestions for our talk today, and it starts with, don't jumpstart your car! Exclamation point. Could you explain why? I thought that's something that we always needed to do if the battery was dead.
Yes, and thank you for keeping your BMW running with CTEK. We love to hear powered by CTEK.
Yeah.
And it should be noted that we were the inventors of the first smart charger.
Yes.
So we've always had our eyes on the market and where it is today. So jump starting batteries today with all the electronics that are in vehicles. There are more, we were talking about this a little bit, there are more computers in a regular sedan than there are in fighter jets.
It's amazing.
So you can imagine if one of those ECUs were to blow out, that you would have a major problem and it would be very expensive. We have this situation with techs in shops as well. So they're starting to recognize how important it is not to use a traditional jump starter or booster cables. We have smart technology where you can boost the car within 15 minutes. And it actually reads the battery a little bit and slows it, the charge down, so you're not giving it that burst of energy and then removing all that power, because that's the point where the ECU blows. So if you get your car up to a starting point within 15 minutes, 15 minutes is worth saving an ECU.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's huge. And can you explain a little bit of why that is? You explained it to me before we got on the air here today about what's going on when you jumpstart a battery versus using a CTEK recharger. I guess maybe I'm using the wrong terminology here, but yeah, tell us why that is. What's going on?
Yeah, so the correct term for us is boost. So it gives you a boost as opposed to a jump. So when you put all of that energy and power that it takes to jumpstart a car instantly, if you were using a traditional jump starter or jumper cables, all that power goes in. You're shocking the battery. Then when you remove those cables almost immediately, right, as soon as the car turns over, then that voltage drop. The battery is looking for all that power. And so as all of the technology, like what happened, I'm supposed to be at this level, it comes down so quickly that that's when the ECU blows.
Yeah, scary stuff. Now, when I met your original founder way back when at Frankfurt at that Automechanica? Was that Automechanica?
Automechanica.
Yeah.
Automechanica.
I should know. I went to so many of those. He had told me about this new technology and how different it was. Because back in those days, this was close to over 20 years ago, trickle chargers or battery chargers sometimes would keep feeding that battery all the time. And what would happen is it would boil over. And that could be a problem, or it could cause maybe a fire. I don't know. But he said, no, we've got this little computer in here that can understand what's going on and kind of feed this. How has technology since then changed for CTEK? And maybe you could walk us through your product line a little bit, because you have more to offer than just what I've got on my vehicle nowadays. You've got some new things that are pretty cool.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes. So what he was referring to was actually reading the battery and how much it needs, as opposed to just giving it constant current just to keep it excited, because that's when you can boil if you don't have a controlled amount of power going. So on the power portion of it, a smart charger will actually read how much the battery needs. So it'll go through our technology takes you through stages. So it sees if it needs to be desulfated, and then how much power can it take, how much power is there, and then once it gets to a charge at 80%, then it starts to give the battery just what it needs to top it off, so that you're not ever overcharging. And once it's 100%, it'll then put into a maintenance, and then maintenance will keep it to what it needs. And maybe you open the door while it was charging and there was a bit of spike. Well, then it needs a little more power. So it gives it what it needs without boiling the batteries. And since then, you'll see a lot of lithium batteries now. So we have a specific charger for lithium, and we have one for power sports, for instance, with motorcycle batteries, and that has both, so a lead acid and a lithium option. And it'll give, again, same thought process. It won't ever boil a battery. You can set and forget a CTEK charger. We have a lot of snowbirds that take advantage of the fact that they have stored cars in both their winter and summer places, and they keep a charge on all those times. We have wonderful clients that have beautiful storage facilities, and it's a mandate that every charger in their facility has a CTEK charger on it. Some of these cars are only driven 2 days a year.
I understand. I've had many collector cars, and they can sit. And there's nothing worse than a beautiful spring day. You go to get in your old vintage car, and it goes click, 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 and you just go, oh no, I
Yeah, and then
forgot to
the
connect
next
my
day
charger.
it's raining.
Yeah. Then it's all over with. One thing, too, before we get into the different products you offer, could you explain a bit about batteries? Because in the old days, the idea of, well, you never want your battery to go completely dead because you never get full life back. Is that true? Is that how batteries work?
With certain batteries, if you don't take care of them, but CTEK has some products that will bring a dead battery back. So we actually have what's called a reconditioning mode, and it can bring most batteries back from dead. So even if they've been sitting for a while. So there is opportunity, and I would recommend before you buy a new battery to try to bring it back and revive it. And if you were to charge once a month, that would keep your battery in top shape. If you let it sit, and this is something that a lot of us don't understand until we hear it from someone, is that the summer is really what does all the damage to the battery. That heat is no good for the battery. And then in winter, it's just like our bodies. We need to exercise a little bit more, warm up a little bit more before we go out and take a run. Well, the battery, when it needs that more energy, you'll see all the damage that was done, or you'll feel all the damage that was done from the heat because it won't crank over. So taking care of the battery in summer is just as important as in winter.
Always take care of your battery. It's the root of all starting for vehicles. So walk me through the product line and how CTEK has evolved since those early days when I met your founder and you had that original unit.
Yes. So there are lots of different batteries now with deep cycle, right? There's lots of different types of deep cycle batteries, and those require a different kind of a charge. But our chargers will do really well with any kind of 12-volt lead acid, no matter if it's a deep cycle, et cetera. So we start with a 0.8, and then we have a 4.3 amps, which is, we have a test and charge, which also has an alternator tester in it. So if you're looking to do both, absolutely, because sometimes you think it's a battery problem, it's actually an alternator problem. So there's a unit that does that. We have one that's gauged for winter, so it has Nordic standard cables on it so that it's not super stiff, the cabling, when you're trying to charge if you have to drape it outside. And also it has bright orange, so you can see it if the snow runs or if the snow goes on top of it. And yes, and then our number one seller is a 4.3, and it's our MXS 5.0 that has temperature compensation in it. So it's different charging in winter and different charging in summer. This has built-in temperature sensor and does any kind of 12-volt lead acid battery, and it has all the good things I just talked about with the stages, and it has a recon mode. And then we have a 7 amp, which has a power supply, which is really important if you want to keep all the crazy settings that we have in our car, right? So we've got our seats, we've got, for driver 1, for driver 2, everybody has a different set of things that they love, if it's radio settings or even the GPS settings. Keeping those settings when you're swapping out a battery or doing any kind of work, it's always good to have a power supply. So 7 amps starts our power supply mode. And then it does all the other things too, with desulfation, et cetera. And then we have our professional line, which is a 25 amp. Those are all of our 110 offerings. We have DC-DC power, which is a beautiful system that can keep you off-road forever. It takes care of that service battery and the secondary battery. So if you want to power your margarita machine while you're off out camping and you want to make sure that you can start your camper in the morning, it can do both for you. So, and it manages the power. And then we have, and then we have our new CS3, which is, again, that smart boost, and also in lieu of jump starting, your smart starting, right? So it also is a maintainer and charger, and it has ports for USBs. Wow. And also an option with the solar panel. So when you are off-road, you can charge the internal battery. You can also use it to charge your battery, secondary or or service.
Nice. All sorts of options. And something that came up, I've had lots of people on my show in the last year and a half regarding EVs. And somebody made a comment to me and I felt like I was just like so naive. They said, well, remember, full EV car does have a battery in it. And I went, well, yeah, it has the giant bank of
12-volt battery.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, well, why would it need that? It's got this giant set of batteries, but those cars do have their own. So you need to keep those kept up, right?
Exactly. You do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
And CTEK has EV charging options too in Europe. So in our 220 volt. Oh. And then we also have GM is one of our customers, and we're doing EV batteries for them here in North America.
Nice. Well, the world is changing fast, isn't it?
Completely, yes. And we're there. We're ready.
Well, of course. Yeah, I've no doubt that you guys are. I'd like to ask about inspirations and mentors in people's lives. And you work around a lot of really smart people. Your company is full of really smart people. They're smart to hire you too, Bobbie. But I wonder if there's somebody in your past that really has stood out for you that was very influential in your life.
Yes. I worked with a woman that she had a leadership position, and she treated everyone with respect, and she did it effortlessly. You could tell she wasn't trying. It was just natural. And she always honored her commitments and communicated clearly and never disappointed in deliverables. That to me is she wasn't even trying to mentor. I don't know how many people she inspired, but I know she inspired me.
What was her name?
Coco Tillaferraro.
Wow. Now that's a name. That's a lot to stand up to. No wonder she was who she was. That sounds like a famous European fragrance provider or something. But of course, I'm thinking Coco Chanel. But wow. One of the things too we talk about here are challenges. Challenges can be a real pain in the rear. However, when you look back, they teach us a lot of valuable lessons. Is there something like that in your past life, career that stands out for you that you look back now and go, I'm kind of glad I went through that?
Yes, I believe I had not so great of an alignment at a previous company and ethics-wise. And I left, and it brought me to the CTEK path, and CTEK has taught me balance. So I love that I work with people that I really enjoy working with. We respect each other. Ethics are on the same level. And it made a better life for me.
Nice. Do you think it had anything to do with, CTEK basically started European company and has gone global. And I've talked with a lot of people that are in similar situations. And when you bring a different culture into a different country, sometimes that can work really well. Sometimes it doesn't. And there's some misalignments there. But in this case, do you think that had any part to play?
Maybe because they realized to catch your breath, right? So we are on a wheel here that goes very, very fast. And I think in the U.S., right? And people, when you say, oh, I'll get back to you. Well, I almost had to wait for that answer. Well, it's not quite the same in Europe. And I think that somewhere in the middle is the right answer.
I like that concept of take a breath. Yeah, sometimes you need to do that. Step back and take a breath. In many ways, maybe sometimes when a thought goes through your head, before your mouth opens, sit back and take a breath. Think about it.
Yeah, well, CTEK actually encouraged us during COVID. And I don't know of any other company that did this, but they said, catch the light. So even if you walked away from your desk, go out when there's sunlight, take a walk, take a break, and come back and be refreshed. So they actually had us send in photos of catching the light, and people caught the light in different ways. And it was a way for us to stay connected when you couldn't really travel to see each other, and also to remind everyone that, okay, you need to step away. And again, back to that balance.
How refreshing. That's awesome. I love that. We could all use that advice every day. Well, it's raining today, but I'm still going to go out and have lunch with a good friend today I haven't seen in a while and catch a little light. So I'll remember that
There you go.
while we're enjoying that. Yeah, looking for a little blue spot in the sky. Pacific Northwest, we do get a little bit of rain here. So let's talk about a special vehicle in your life, something that kind of stands out, and share a story about that ride.
Okay, let's see. I would have to say it was a GTO. I want to say it was maybe a 1973 GTO.
Ooh.
I was just learning how to drive, and the guy I was dating at the time taught me, but I weighed about 100 pounds back then, and it took both of my feet to push in the clutch.
The clutch, yeah. Yeah.
So as I'm pushing in the clutch, I had a quick fly over to the gas. And
Yeah.
It was quite interesting, but I had so much fun driving that car.
Well, that brings the idea or the concept of double clutching to a reality check. Yeah,
Exactly.
I've got to put both feet on the clutch pedal. Yeah, some of those old cars can be a little tough, and even new ones. I picked up a 2007. I flew down to California and drove back a Porsche GT2, which is kind of like a little bit of almost like a race car for the streets. And I just remember driving it back. The clutch was really, really stiff on that thing. And I thought, man, I don't know if I want to be driving this around as a daily driver, which I was right, but it was sure fun on the open road. So, but yeah, the old goats, the GTOs, very, very cool. I love it. So here's a bit of a car psychologist question for you. I'm going to crawl into your head, be your car psychologist. If you were reincarnated, manifest as a vehicle, what would you be, Bobbie? But more importantly, why?
Well, I think if I'm being realistic, what suits it would be a Jeep Grand Cherokee, tougher than it looks and plows through almost anything.
I love it. Yeah. Nice answer to that question. That's why the why is so important. The Jeep Grand Cherokee, my son-in-law has one of those, and Jeeps in general, the whole character of Jeep, the brand, just goes back to get out of my way. I'm going to go do what I want to do. And, out in the roadway and customizing and all that fun stuff. So I like it. Nice answer. I'd like to ask about how people and companies give back. CTEK has a very interesting online program called Skill Base that I want you to share with our listeners because I really love what you're doing.
Yes, it's both online and in person. So we believe in the next generation. Of course, we take care of this one, but the next one to make sure that they have the knowledge base with all the emerging technologies that we have. We still have a lot of cars on the road that aren't new, right? And especially now, taking care of battery systems are really important, whether it's old or new. So skill base is actually part of our culture. We feel as leaders in the industry, it's important for us to give knowledge and to teach and train and pass it along. So skill base is tailor-made to the audience. So if we were to go into a shop that maybe has a retail presence, has online customer service, has technicians in the back, and customer service, whatever it is that they need, we could break it down into different groups and make sure that what we were teaching was pertinent to that particular audience. So it wasn't just a one size fits all. And if we have training, let's say for just focusing on one new product, why is it important? And this is where we give insights as to why battery care is so important. It's not a commercial for CTEK. It's really product knowledge, product training, and also why it's important. So for the first few slides, we don't even mention CTEK. We just talk about why battery management is so important.
Great. I'll make sure to put links to that on Bobbie's show notes page here on the Cars Yeah website. Now, we talked about this great book, children's book that you wrote. Is there another book that you've read you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Well, it's a heavy one, but
Okay.
it does give you perspective. It's called When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Colancy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And it's a true story about a doctor's journey.
Yeah. Interesting that you mentioned that book because just a few weeks ago, I was introduced to that book by another guest on the show, and I hadn't heard of it before. And I have a good friend who just retired, although now he's talking about going back to work. He's a neurosurgeon, pediatric neurosurgeon. And I mentioned that book to him, and he goes, "Oh, I know that book. I know of the author." And he goes, "I can't read it. It's too heavy. It's just too heavy." Now, this is from a guy who's been around, saving people's lives and death because you don't save everybody. And he works on people with brain tumors and tumors in their spines and all that. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because that book has come up twice now this year. So When Breath Becomes Air. Yeah. A good read, though. I think a positive read. Right?
One of the best or best written books I've read.
Nice. Well, again, I'll put links to those and Bobbie's book for the little ones or us older ones too. I'm sure we can have fun with that on her show notes page. So before I let you go today, I'm going to enable you to go on what I call the ultimate drive. I'm your benefactor, which means I'm going to provide you with any vehicle, park it in your garage. You can drive it anywhere you want in the world. And here's the fun part. You can take anybody with you, even somebody who's no longer with us, which opens up all sorts of opportunities. So what does the ultimate drive look like for you, Bobbie?
Wow, that's a really great question. Okay, so this is fantasy, right?
Yes,
so
of course.
So Jay Leno.
Oh, fun. Okay.
With his favorite car with a story. I had the fortunate pleasure of going through his collection. And there's a story behind each one of those cars. Well, I would love for him to pick out his favorite car, let me drive it. And while we're driving, he would tell me why he chose that car and then what inspires his passion for cars and how does it feel to impact that many car enthusiasts.
Amazing guy. I have tried to get him on this show forever and have been unsuccessful so far, but I'm not going to give up on you, Jay. Unfortunately, he's been through a couple tough gigs here. He got burned pretty badly not too long ago, and then he had a motorcycle crash just a few weeks ago and broke some bones. And so, but the great thing about him, I saw an interview with him after he got burned. And of course, in his comedic way, he had some fun with it and lightened up the story, which could have been way more catastrophic, but he got burned pretty good. But he's just great. I read his first book. I think it's called Taking It on the Chin or something about a chin, of course. That went back to his history and his childhood and cars and parking cars and in Hollywood and so forth. But yeah, he's just such a great guy. And he loves cars with stories, doesn't he?
He does. And he's been a wonderful person to CTEK. His whole garage is powered by CTEK. So he loves us and we love him. And yes, he is a great guy and has a great sense of humor. And we have some really heartwarming stories with him. And we hope the best because all of us got scared. You never saw a phone blow up so fast when we found out he got hurt. It went all over the CTEK world, Australia and everywhere in Europe. And here in North America, we were pulling for him to get better fast.
Yep, he's well loved. So Jay, if you're out there, get well. Be careful. Maybe motorcycles aren't the thing to be on anymore. I stopped riding them years ago after some big scares. Yeah, they're a little spooky, but we wish Jay the best for a quick recovery. So before I let you go today, Bobbie, could you share some parting words of wisdom, advice, success quote, or a mantra with us?
Okay, let's see. I think that I'll quote the CTEK mantra.
Yes.
Work hard, play hard, have fun with family, friends, and coworkers.
I love it. Great spirit there at CTEK. How can people learn more about CTEK?
So for North America, you can go to smartercharger.com or you can go to ctek.com and then just select the country that you want to go to, and it'll link all the products that are available in that specific area and also tell you a lot about the company.
Awesome. Great. I'll put links to that, but you know what? They're easy to find. Being a long time CTEK user, I can say they've never let me down, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Bobbie, to you and your team for making sure that when I get in my car, and I'm going to go out and jump in it today, and I haven't driven it for a while, I don't have any worries. It's going to turn over and start. I'll tell you a quick tip for you folks out there. Last thing you want to do is get in your car and drive away with it still connected to your charger and the wall. I know that by experience, but I'm not going to say any more than that. However, I have a solution for you. I was at a great aerospace museum in Alabama, and they had these cool things that they put on airplanes that say remove before flight. They're a red tab, very bold, remove before flight. I hang that on my steering wheel every time I plug my charger in, so I never make that mistake again. So it's kind of a fun way, kind of makes me smile. Of course, you can do it with just a note, but that's my tip of the day. If you keep a car charged that you don't drive every day, and make sure that you do unplug it before you drive away.
There is a solution too. You can get a CTEK Quick Connect, and that way you'll always see the Quick Connect. And it has a stop sign type technology, so that if it's red, you need a charge. If it's amber, then it's cautioning you that you need to charge soon. And if it's green, you're good to go. And that way you'll see that hanging out.
I figured you guys had a solution for that too, so I appreciate that. I want to do a shout out to and thank Angela Asmos at Michelle Suzuki Communication PR for connecting Bobbie and I today. Thank you, Angela, very, very much. Bobbie, thanks for being so generous today with your time and your expertise and sharing the world of how to care for our vehicles better, the battery systems. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you and hopefully Jay Leno too down the road.
Thank you. It was fun.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.